Dak Prescott has turned down an offer of $30 million a year. He is not a top 5 quarterback. He wants top 2 money. It's a bad business decision. Gil Leberton, what is the worst business decision you've ever made?
Probably not selling my McClatchy stock immediately upon
I'm
being
familiar with that one. John Henry?
It's undoubtedly marriage.
I can't top marriage, but I can give you 2 words and Google it. Pizza buzz.
Heard about that.
PressBox DFW Live, welcome in. I'm your host, Richie Witt, alongside 2 venerable Metroplex sports writers, Gil Leberton, John Henry. And apparently we're doing 3 different shows today. I'm on headphones. John Henry has them casually around his neck, and Gil has his tossed aside in the trash. You can't hear what I'm saying.
This is my Jeffrey Epstein look.
Oh, too soon, Gil.
Dark.
Way too
way dark.
Season 2, episode 10. Cowboys breaking news of the day. Dak Prescott not only turns down $30 million, he tells sources, we'll hear about that later, that he wants $40 million a year. John Henry, is that crazy?
Yeah, I would have cut him on the spot.
Wow, he's harsh today, Gil. $40 million a year.
I'm not kidding.
He can't really ask for that, can he?
Sure, he could ask for it. He's got leverage, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, huh?
Give me
the consequences.
Give me your thumbnail opinion of, is Dak really asking for $40 million?
No.
Okay.
No, I think he's asking for north of what the figure that's been tossed out there, which is like 32, 34,
right,
something like that. And then they'll settle for something less. I mean, but the big question is, how did that come out that he was asking for 40?
How did that come out?
Because that's a bad public relations
it's a horrible
hit by
PR
doing
move.
that.
Absolutely.
And why would his agent float that out there unless it wasn't his agent?
Yeah, maybe it was the company that owns the network who has, they have a dog in the hunt. Speaking of the devil, Jane Slater is the NFL Network reporter who broke the story yesterday that Dak Prescott wants $40 million. I used to do some radio with Jane back at 105.3 The Fan back in the day. Now she's a mover shaker. And to catch her, we have to get up really early. So I came in here early to do an interview with sassy scooper Jane Slater. NFL Network sassy scooper Jane Slater joining us. Slater, I was following you yesterday, and everybody should that's a Cowboys fan or an NFL fan at Slater NFL. And you had some breaking news yesterday. Dak has turned down $30 million a year and wants $40 million a year. Even though we knew kind of the situation, that was an eye-popping get. So congratulations, and go ahead and explain to us what exactly that means for Cowboys fans.
Well, and just to peel the curtain back a little bit, because I know that Dak Prescott's team has made the media rounds to discredit the report, I was actually reaching out to my sources because when I saw that Dak had turned down $30 million, I thought, there's no way. In other words, I was incredulous with that,
Sure.
and I was trying to get to the bottom of it. And the response was, not only did he turn down $30 million, he wants 40. And I was equally as incredulous, and my reaction was as severe, I think, as the fans when I put it out there. But to be clear, that's the number that Dak and his team are obviously pitching to the Cowboys. The Cowboys, we now know, offered him $30 million. That would put him in the top 5 highest paid this position. I think the goal here for both sides is when Dak's team actually comes back to the table and wants to discuss this contract, the Cowboys are going to come up, and then inevitably they're going to come down. And so I think you can expect it's going to be somewhere around 34, 35 putting him in a little bit over, Carson Wentz. And then I think this state of panic that everyone's in will subside. But I just wanted to give people some context of how far apart they are. And here are the numbers that we're playing with. And just as a curious fan myself, I thought it was intriguing information. I'll be honest, I didn't expect for it to blow up
Well,
as much as it did.
And you know why, though.
Specifically,
Go
like I
ahead.
said, well, for, obviously Dak's team, they see the way it played out. People are obviously responding with, "You're absolutely crazy." It didn't exactly paint him in the best light. And for that, I'm genuinely, I don't try to muddy the waters for players. I really try to eliminate any locker room infighting, and I stay away from the drama. I truly do. And I'm a fan of Dak, and I don't want this to hurt negotiations. I truly think that his deal still gets done, but I just want to give people some context of where I think this, just based on the people I've talked to and their desire and their want of Dak, where I still think this thing gets. And, you've got to think if Dak and his team are smart, 34, 35 is a pretty good number. And as, look, the Cowboys have pointed out to us, they're not afraid to play him on a one-year deal. So if they don't get to that 34, 35 number, don't be surprised if Dak plays on a prove-it deal next year.
Yeah, they'll franchise him and off we'll go. We've seen that before. Jane Slater
Yeah.
joining us here on PressBox DFW Live. So you mentioned an interesting name and a name that I wrote about a couple months ago when it comes to Dak, and that's the name of Carson Wentz. He got the extension, and I think that's kind of what Dak, at least in my mind, a lot of Cowboys fans' mind, that's kind of the bar. It's not Brady. It's
Right.
not Breeze. It's not, the elite of the elite. And Wentz made a deal, I think, around 32 million, 31 million. So if Dak gets 33, I guess the thinking is he should be happy with that. But when you touch 40, there's something just magical about, we kind of get lost, 32, 33, whatever. We can't relate to that. But 40, oh my God, 40. It just, that's why they got the reaction. And it was great
Correct.
reporting by you. Again, it's not your job to keep locker room harmony, and it's not your job to not get a deal done or not. You're just reporting the facts. But I don't think there's any Cowboys fan who says, yes, Dak's a top 5 quarterback. He's going to be paid like a top 5 quarterback. So what's your best guess to how this gets done? They meet somewhere in the middle. You said 34, 35, right?
If it gets done at this point.
Yeah.
I've been asked along the way as it pertains to Zeke, Amari, and Dak, how do you see this thing going? And I feel like my gut instincts on it have been wrong every twist and turn. So right now I'm just sticking to the facts.
Welcome
Here's
to the
what I
Cowboys,
know.
right? Yeah.
Don't ask me what I think, having covered the Cowboys. I'll just tell you what I know, because the Cowboys were completely caught off guard when Zeke wasn't on that plane. As I reported, he had a seat assignment. It was 9A. He was supposed to be on that plane.
Right.
He told the Cowboys he was going to be on that plane, and then he wasn't. And then now as this thing has played out, I don't expect that we even start talking about Zeke again and his arrival at camp. And again, here I go speculating. But my feeling is that there has been no movement on that yet. So, if you're Zeke and you've decided to hold out this long, you're not going to show up August 20th when the Cowboys are back to camp. I mean, it's going to be probably closer to, the start of camp when this thing gets going. But it's fascinating that when I just watch the fan base, and I've gotten to the point where I don't even look at Twitter. I put my stuff out there, then I walk away. But
Smart. You're learning finally, Slater. You're finally learning.
yeah, I'm finally learning, right? But it's fascinating to me how the fan base is so split on this, and everyone has their opinions. But it's like we faulted the Cowboys for so long in the media. Why are you paying this guy? This veteran guy, his body's wearing down. You're not going to possibly get back, a return on your investment. Why are you doing it? Now it's like we're finally seeing them act prudently.
Yep.
They're not kicking the can down the line so much. And then there's people attacking them for that. So it's fascinating to watch. I don't even think the Cowboys expected that all three were going to be this difficult, but you can also see their side in the sense that, look, it's my time. This is where the market's set. As was explained to me, if you look at the Carson Wentz deal, he's actually making about 27.5, 27.85 a year.
Okay.
It's not really that 30-something number. And so the Cowboys, that's kind of where they're setting. They're like, hey, 30. That's why they're saying 30 is a generous offer. We're actually paying you more. And when they look at the Todd Gurley deal, they're like, look, Zeke, that was a bad deal.
Yes.
We don't want to reset the market. you talk to a lot of GMs and other teams, because I've kicked it around to them because that's who I deal with now that I'm at the NFL Network, and even they'll tell you, I wouldn't have done the Todd Gurley deal. And when you look at Todd Gurley's situation as it is with the Rams right now, they might find that that was a bad deal themselves. So the Cowboys are sort of, say what you will about all of this. Maybe they should have gotten the deals, especially they should have gotten Dak done before Carson. They should have, maybe started some of these conversations earlier, but you can kind of understand both sides. If you want to be reasonable and look at both sides, here's where both of them are at. Here's the negotiating tactics in it. It's no different than when I've negotiated my own contracts with where I've worked. You start with this number, which is like, what? You allow your agent to handle it, and then you end up somewhere in the middle. And I think that that's where we're going to see an LEP shake out.
Yeah, we'll wind up in the middle. Just the question remains, when will you wind up in the middle? It's Jane Slater joining us from the NFL Network, joining us here on PressBox DFW Live. Follow her at Slater NFL for all the breaking news on the Cowboys, Dak, Zeke, etc. So you mentioned the word agents, and of course, every player has to have an agent. But from doing this for 30 years, and you've been doing it for a long time as well, you come to the realization that when agents do their job, they're getting the most money they can for their client, right? And that
Obviously, because
sometimes
they get a cut of it too.
they get a cut of it too. Absolutely, that's how they put bread on their table. But it comes often at the expense of the more money Zach makes, the more money Zeke makes, the harder it is for the Cowboys to put really good talent around them, and that's what gets lost. And I think if you ask, Dak and Zeke, do you want to win a Super Bowl? Of course. Well, do you know that holding out and asking for more money hurts that cause, big picture? I think they get that, but again, I don't, like you just said, it's a tough one because you don't blame somebody in the marketplace, especially Zeke with the shelf life of a running back, for getting all he can now. But this kind of thing, man, I covered Emmitt Smith's holdout in 1993. This has this smell, this stench of something that could go almost to the regular season, if not into it.
Which is shocking because when I was asked about this earlier this summer, again, I said that I don't see the same being acrimonious. Think of everything that Jerry has done for Zeke. He has publicly put his neck out there for him.
Yeah.
He has defended him after he was feted at the Hall of Fame. Basically going on the record and defending a guy in very sticky allegations. I mean, I read all the court documents. I'm sure you did, Richie, because I know you're one of those guys. Like, it's complicated, and it was so complicated that even, the Ohio Police Department was like, we don't know if we have enough evidence here, but there are things around this that don't feel right. But Jerry literally stuck his neck out there. And so I thought, there's no way that Zeke is going to make this complicated or put an egg in Jerry's face. And publicly, of course, he's not worried about it, whatever. But, I mean, he was clearly frustrated. He appreciated, of course, that Amari and Dak are there. But this is agents doing their job. And this is why you pay them.
Absolutely.
In my case, I pay my agent 10%. When I don't want to have the tough conversation, that's why you pay them. They are your buffer. And that's exactly what Rocky Arsenault is doing. That's what Todd France is doing. That's what Joe Siegel is doing for Amari Cooper. All those guys realize that these are and if you look at the way these contracts are done, Dak was playing for nothing the last couple of years.
It's true.
So of course he's going to try and go get his while he can. So, I don't think the Cowboys necessarily fault them for that. Even Stephen Jones has come out and publicly said, along the lines of the same thinking, we realize that they don't have to put their heads on the pillow at night and worry about if this is going to get done and we can sign all three, and that's for us to worry about. They realize that they're the ones that need to find the money. They've said to us they want to make sure that all three guys walk away with smiles on their faces. They feel respected, that they realize that they're the guys that they want on this roster. But there are economics to this, and to your point, you can't have all three guys resetting the market and expect to get something done. I mean, just look at the Seahawks. Russell Wilson finally got paid, and guess what? They have not been able to build the sort of caliber team they need around him since paying him that money. They were able to get it done when he was on the rookie minimum.
It makes a different sport, but you've done radio here in Dallas. We did together at 105.3 The Fan. You've been around Dallas enough to know how great Dirk Nowitzki is, and that's one of the things that made him so great is he would take pay cuts to say, we got to get better guys around me. I'll take $3 million less. And that's just unheard of in the NFL.
And did it translate? No, it didn't translate.
Yeah, now he's probably
Here.
like, dang it, I left a lot of money on the table for one championship.
I mean, Tom Brady is such an outlier and anomaly, and the
Yes,
fact that
of course.
he does it, it sort of makes everybody else look like, wait, we're not the Patriots Saint of football.
Exactly
But
right.
I can understand a man's position, a woman's position to hold out, and when you have the opportunity to go get yours, you get it. So I think it's so easy for fans to like throw dirt at front office, at players, and that's why when you put out this stuff, it's like, realize not everyone is reasonable, and they're not going to always see some of us see when we're dealing with these people and we're talking to them. But as crazy as that $40 million number is, that's not what Dak is expecting to get. That's not what Dak is going to get.
Right. Let's talk about real quick about the Cowboys in general. You spent some time out at Oxnard with them, training camp. You've watched a preseason game. You kind of know the vibe. Dak and Zeke and Amari and all the things that are going around. I mean, this team already has to play a first-place schedule. They've got a lame duck coach and Jason Garrett. And now they've got, are these distractions? Is this going to get the Cowboys season off to a limp rather than a sprint? What's going on in camp here?
Here's what I'll say about the Cowboys this season, and a couple of us have kind of talked about this. It, as crazy as it sounds with the stuff that we put out in the media, and God, I really never want to be that media person, right? Like I hate the media people that fan the flames, dramatic. And so I think I've tried to, and I know my colleagues have like really tried to like temper the craziness and like, because there isn't a craziness. When we've been at camp, it has been fascinating how it has not seemed like there's been a problem. There felt like there was more panic last year when they had a tight end and a wide receiver by committee. Last year felt like there was more angst. Like, we don't have the pieces, and I cannot believe the Cowboys think that we're going to get by with some of these Band-Aids.
Yeah.
This year, maybe it's because Kellen Moore and John Kentner are there, and maybe it's something new. You're hearing a new voice. There's a freshness to this offense. Defense feels like, wow, there's some really good pieces here. Maybe Xavier Woods isn't a bad option in the absence of Earl Thomas. The Robert Quinn thing obviously was concerning, that not only was it the injury, but I got the suspension, but it just hasn't felt. We pulse on it, hasn't felt that there's been like a distraction, or that this has been like this crazy all season, even though it does feel like that to the people on the outside that are reading the headline, if that makes sense.
And Jerry's pretty good at absorbing and deflecting distractions. I mean, he's been doing it since he got here, the day he got here. Jane Slater joining us of NFL Network, joining us on PressBox DFW Live. So Slater, we do what's called a vodcast, which means we do audio, but we also do some video. So while we've been listening to your interview, we put up some pictures of your work at NFL Network at various venues. But now I'm going to put up a picture of 105.3 The Fan. We had a beach volleyball outing back in the day. This is from 2012. And I'm sure you remember this. We decided, let's go down Venice Beach. Oh, there's a beach volleyball court. So it was Mark Elfenbein, Sean Sharif, me, and you. And we ran out on a beach, popped open a 12-pack, started playing. And up comes a couple of California's finest on ATVs and wrote us tickets. You remember this, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
I was a costly lesson, by the way.
You were what?
It was a very costly lesson. That ended up being $150 for me.
Yeah, okay.
I
So
ended up getting yeah.
that was my question. I have not paid my citation, so I'm not allowed back in the state probably without being arrested. You paid yours and you're all legal, right?
So, again, I'll peel the curtain back on that. I was the perpetrator. I went and got it was something out of like a movie, so to speak. I went and picked up a 6-can of beers. We had like a long camp week.
Yep.
And it was just like 3-team bonding. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to South Padre Island or, down there in Rockport, Port A. You're allowed to drink on the beach. So I'm in what is, I think most of us can agree, is a liberal state.
We
and
thought,
so
yeah.
I'm literally cracking these beer cans off these like plastic 6-pack rings and tossing it out to the guys. We had not even, I hadn't even sipped that beer. And this guy comes over on his ATV and he was nonplussed, and I was trying to have a little fun with him. He said, "Can you see the sign?" And I said, "What sign?" And so they're looking at me, and there's this crude dwelling at my Hilton in Cave of this "no drinking on the beach" sign. I mean, it was really like this ugly looking martini glass with a like a stop through it.
It was a clear sign. We just missed it and thought it must be fake because we're in
I
California
didn't
on the
think
beach.
anything
Right?
of it.
Right.
I think
Right.
it's going to get like, "Hey, here's a warning. You can't drink on the beach. No big deal." But instead, he not only wrote me a ticket, but every single person a ticket. And so, sort of to your point, Richie, it was, tail end of 105 through the fan. I felt things were shaking up. And for sure, I wouldn't be back there for another training camp, and I didn't pay it. I mean, I was, to popular belief, radio hosts in the Dallas-Fort Worth market don't make a ton of money, and at the time, I was completely broke. I was like, $150 is a lot of money, and I'm never going to be back in this state.
Right.
So I didn't pay it. So lo and behold, 3 years later, I ended up getting a call from NFL Network, and I was going to have to drive through
You came clean?
Malibu, and I thought to myself, I bet there's a warrant out for my arrest. So I, of course, call the police officer on duty, basically said, "We're not going to come knocking on your door in Texas, but if you get pulled over here in California, it can pop." And, sort of downplaying it, but the idea of a press release going out 2 days later, NFL Network reporter on her way to training camp first assignment gets arrested by Malibu police, a warrant for her arrest. I just didn't feel good about it, so I ended up paying it. It ended up costing me, it was between $1,200 and $1,500.
Wow.
The most expensive non-alcohol related
I love
fine
you.
that I've ever paid. It never even touched my lips.
Right. I love you like my own radio sister, but playing 1 point of beach volleyball with 1 sip of beer, not worth $150. So
Not even.
Slater, we love you.
It's so funny. Every time I go to California, as a matter of fact, I was out there I was on the Heat watch, so they gave me like 4 days, and I have a bunch of friends that live out there, and so I was shooting during training camp, and White Claw is the new thing, and I love some White Claw. And so my friend who lives out in California backs his pickup truck on the beach because he belongs to this thing called the Jonathan Club, and takes his dog out, which again is also illegal. You're not allowed to have your dog like out in a leash. First thing I said to him is, "I am scared to crack open this White Claw on this beach because I've gotten a ticket." And he's like, "Look, all this just put it like red Solo cups are like serving in lunch."
Now we know. Yeah. Well, the cops are
life hack. There you go.
right. The cops are really nice. They posed for a picture, but they also were very serious in giving us citations. So I'm glad you're off the hook. I cannot come visit you out at California because I'll probably have a nice mugshot. So Slater, we love you. I loved you on the radio. You're doing great work at NFL Network. Go get them, girl.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. There goes Jane Slater, NFL Network. Boys, thoughts on Dak and the $40 million?
Well, I think she needs a better cell phone reception
There's no doubt.
for a big time
She had to
network.
pay all that money for that beer ticket. They
Can't
couldn't
afford
afford a
one.
good cell phone.
She shouldn't have walked around.
Yeah.
I have a problem with. Well, here's the dilemma: if you're walking in the hallway with Jerry Jones alone,
Yep.
which will never happen. Because Jerry never goes anywhere alone, right?
Good point.
But okay, it's you, Roosevelt, and Jerry,
Right.
and he says, I'm gonna call it quits after this year. How fast do you go on Twitter or online with that with that story?
Before his shoe takes the next step, hits the ground.
That's right. And so I'm not saying Jane shouldn't report stuff like that, even if she knows in her mind that it's a negotiating ploy.
Sure.
And so, it's the way the news business is nowadays.
You've done that, and I've done that.
Yeah.
Knowing this, I mean, back in the day, Jason Kidd was making ultimatums. I don't want to play with Jim Jackson. It wasn't true, but it was news.
It's not her job
Exactly
to be
right.
editorial,
Exactly
to
right.
editorialize and
negotiations,
and to self-edit when somebody tells her stuff like that. In a column, we can get away with it, and we can offer better perspective and couch the thing a little better and point out, all right, this might have been the hidden agenda behind all this, because all of this back and forth is agenda driven. That's what we're getting at.
It's Cowboys front office sources saying this, and it's agents saying this, and somewhere they will meet in the middle. John Henry, after you don't cut Dak, how much are you paying him? Not 40 million.
I was about to say Mike White is my new quarterback.
Oh dear. All right, there's
No,
some press
I'll go
box.
30 million, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, look at him. PressBox DFW Live. Again, it's episode 10 of season 2. Thanks to Jane Slater on NFL Network. Next up, TCU needs a quarterback. Let's take a couple stabs at who it might be.
Welcome to this week's pregame meal. John and I were out at TCU practice on Saturday, sweating.
Y'all were trying out?
We were.
That's crazy.
We were.
Y'all are gamers.
We were out there 20 minutes and dripping.
They need offensive line help, postgraduate help. I'm immediately eligible.
I was about to say, do you have eligibility?
I do.
left?
I'm immediately eligible if I want to transfer. TCU's got after somewhat struggling to find the next Trevon Boykin, they suddenly have an abundance of quarterbacks to choose from.
Abundance of good quarterbacks or just.
Well, we don't know yet.
All right.
We don't know yet. They had signed last year, before last season, they had signed one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Justin Rogers.
That's
out
right.
of Bossier City, Louisiana. But however, Justin had a terrible knee injury in the first quarter of the first game of his senior season, and he continues to try to return from that injury. And, he's able to participate at practice apparently, but right now he's battling for his spot on the depth chart. They've gathered this group. We just showed the picture. There's Justin. We just showed the picture of. Well, that was Justin in his lone game action of last year.
You better frame that picture.
Yeah, which was one possession in the Cheez-It Bowl, and
We were there for it.
But at least
All the
he
momentum
was,
from the Cheez-It Bowl, I can still feel it. So is he in the picture, Justin?
Yeah, he's in the
Okay.
picture. But they've gathered quarterbacks in a variety of ways, and it's very much says a lot about college football in 2019. They've got a graduate transfer from Kansas State in Alex Delton.
Yep.
They've got Mike Collins, also a graduate transfer from Penn. From the Ivy League. They've got Justin, who's I guess still considered a redshirt freshman. They've got Max Duggan, who's an actual true freshman, an incoming recruit from Iowa, and Matthew Baldwin, who is a transfer from Ohio State. That I guess Baldwin is technically a freshman from Austin Lake Travis, and in the constant shuffle that took place at Ohio State, he said, "Let me get back and get out of there and get home."
Well, there's some pretty good pedigree there. You got
There's great pedigree.
a Kansas State kid. I've seen him play. He's pretty good. Any player that started a couple of years at Lake Travis, they can play
Right.
with that legacy. So
I
was a little worried about the stable, but after reading your story and seeing that, somebody's going to be a pretty good quarterback out of this group.
You would think, and they're going to take the best one. It's going to be a true meritocracy. They're unlike last year. We don't know this for sure, but this is my theory. There's nothing promised here. I'm sure they gave some assurances to Alex Delton that he would get every opportunity to, since he was transferring from Bill Snyder's program, that he would get every opportunity to be the starter. And boy, he's impressive to meet and talk to. A true leader, the kind of guy that a team that expects to win, and TCU certainly does this season. The kind of senior leader, graduate leader that would fit in Gary Patterson's criteria
Like
for
a
being
glove.
the starting quarterback.
And he
The
scored
question-
a touchdown against Kansas in those highlights. And TCU needs
Well,
help.
can he
nobody
not
has nobody has any doubts that he can run. The question is, can he throw? And, that's not one of the, here he is, he's going to be throwing against TCU of all people. And his receiver makes a very nice catch in the back of the end zone. Can he throw? I think that's the key as to whether or not he starts the entire season for TCU. If he's able to give them something consistent in the passing game, make the right kind of decisions, not turn the ball over, then I think he'll be this. This is my feeling. I haven't been told this. I don't have I don't have Gary's office bugged. Yes, I do. You might want to start scouring that right now, Gary. No,
Jed,
no, we
your
don't.
Liberton.
No, we
Here's
won't.
a live look at
Yeah,
Gary
that's
learning
Gary's
that his office is
reaction.
bugged.
Gary's reaction to my joke, my weak joke.
Every joke.
Every joke.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I don't have any.
You think he's got the inside track?
I do.
Okay.
And I'm not alone in that. I mean, everybody around the program seems. Why Alex just exudes leadership, maturity, and plus it fits right. The number 2 guy probably on the depth chart, Mike Collins, who came off the bench to start, I think it was 4 games last year after Sean Robinson got hurt. He's slowed right now. He had a boot on his right foot on Saturday's scrimmage, wasn't able to participate. That may have been just enough to push him back in the depth chart. And then probably the third stringer, I would guess, would be the incoming freshman, Max Duggan, and then Justin is, because of his ongoing recovery, has probably got to work himself up from that spot. Any of those 4 could end up starting this year, I think, but I personally think that the job is Delton's to lose.
Now that usually makes us football fans, especially us homers of teams, nervous. If you don't have, when you have 4 quarterbacks, it means you don't have 1 quarterback.
Right.
When it's
Yeah.
a quarterback by committee, you're usually like, but do you think this is going to be okay?
Well, I think in this case, I think it will be because, there's.
Can they beat Arkansas Pine Bluff with their committee of quarterbacks? Isn't that
think-
the first game? Pine
Yeah,
Bluff?
Pine Bluff.
The problem is, in today's landscape in college football, what happens when a starter is named, probably in about a week or less, and the ones that are down the depth chart, decide that they want to go elsewhere.
For the transfer portal, you can just go, and it's like a revolving door.
There's
It's
going to be
not that difficult.
There's going to be tons of quarterbacks
Yeah.
in the transfer portal here over the next 2 weeks.
And you just talked about Max Dugan, I think, the incoming freshman. If he's 4th on the depth
Nah,
chart,
he'll be okay because
okay?
he's an incoming freshman.
Okay.
I would think.
You would think,
but
but
what about Collins?
yeah.
But he's
Right.
already transferred once.
What about Justin? If Justin thinks he's healthy, I mean, if he thinks he's healthy and is being knocked down the depth chart simply because he was beaten
Recovering,
out,
yeah.
Not able to move.
We're going to see
quick
this
enough.
transfer portal is going to turn college football into
Already has.
into Major League Baseball, where there's no starter. You just throw relievers to start the game, and you wind up with 9 pitchers per game.
Yeah, it's chaos. At least the NCAA made a bid to restore some sanity to it in June when they tightened the restrictions
They should, yeah.
on granting so-called hardship waivers, immediate eligibility.
Good call. All right. Well, there's TCU quarterback news from Gil Lebreton in the pregame meal. Next up in Double Dribble, these guys played college football, and you did not know they played college football.
Couple of short items before we get on to things I bet you didn't know, or at least I didn't know. A hearty congratulations to our friend of the show, Officer Tony Rambo, who retired last week. Had a party for him on Sunday. Good times. I read limericks.
You did you?
Yes, I did.
You said good times.
That the Mrs. Lebreton would not have approved of, I'm sure.
You go dark. You worked blue, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, congratulations. A happy retirement.
Well deserved.
Every
Well deserved.
Tuesday at
Yeah,
noon, you
Tony.
have a standing appointment with us. But other than that, go
That's right.
Go do what you want.
What Cowboys item? We heard anything about Tristan Hill, the first pick of the Cowboys this year? It's round 2.
We saw that he was on the field Saturday night against the Niners, but he didn't do a lot for my eyeballs.
You got a lot of play. You got a lot of plays out there.
Yeah.
I heard there's growing pains. I read somewhere there's growing pains that they're saying, but that stands to reason.
I mean, he had question marks all over him when they drafted him.
Certainly did. Certainly did. Okay, on to celebrities that I bet you didn't know played college football. Or like I said, at least I didn't know they played college football.
All right.
I don't know what kind of informing I'm doing here.
Me and Gil will be totally honest in whether we knew or not.
You guys like John Goodman?
Love John Goodman.
Yes, even though he was on Roseanne, I like John Goodman.
He was also on Treme,
Yes,
which is one of the HBO all-time great series.
Yeah,
Loved
that's
it.
right up your
Love
alley.
John Goodman.
I think my favorite role of his is Walter Sobchak in Big Lebowski.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true too. He was pretty creepy in Cloverfield Lane too. That movie.
Didn't see that
a couple
one.
of years ago. Yeah.
Didn't see that. Raising Arizona, he was good. He was
Yeah.
great. in
Oh,
that
that's right.
Okay, I think we like him. I think he
one. And a
counts as
pretty
a-
good Babe Ruth. And a pretty
Yes,
good Babe Ruth.
but he didn't play college football.
I bet he did.
Did he really?
At least that's what I hear.
what you hear.
Southwest Missouri State,
Really?
now known as Missouri State in the 1970s. Didn't last long. Injury took him out, and then he went on to meet his well-deserved destiny as Walter Sobchak or Dan Connor.
I think that worked out for him.
Yes.
Getting injured and giving up football for acting, I think that worked out for him.
Right, and this isn't on my list, but John Wayne, of course, was a football player, and that
Yeah.
worked out better
Southern
for him.
Cal.
So do we know how
Exactly.
big John Goodman was or is? Because on TV and in movies, he's a big, burly,
Right.
hulking figure. But on the
Right.
football field, he was probably a blocking fullback or something, regular.
Oh, I bet he was
I'll look up his size. Go ahead. I got sources.
He is 6'2".
6'2".
And they look bigger than that in movies. Like he looks like.
Well, of course, he lost a bunch of weight,
It's true.
so he was probably pushing 350 or
Did
something.
he lose any height?
Probably.
Probably didn't.
Okay, next.
Nick
Incredible
Nolte. Did you know
shrinking
Nick,
Nick
Nolte
Nolte.
went to Arizona State on a football scholarship?
Wow. Now, how did we miss not putting his
Now, is
his
this a-
police booking
Is
shot?
this a mugshot from when he played at Arizona State? He looked a little old.
Like,
The greatest
the greatest
mugshot
mugshot
ever.
of all.
like most of his life, it didn't go as planned at Arizona State.
Right.
His football career ended there when he was expelled.
Can't imagine.
Not a good student, apparently, is what they say. And he tried at several junior colleges, and Eastern Arizona was among them. But it worked out for him.
That totally worked out.
Cape Fear.
Did
I
not
think
know.
that's my favorite role.
Yeah, creepy.
The second Cape Fear. Did you know that Al Gore's roommate at Harvard was a football player? Tommy Lee Jones.
Really?
Seen here on the right.
Thank you for clarifying, Ziggy.
He was an all-league offensive guard in the 1960s.
Was he
Pretty
really?
good one, yeah, in the Ivy League.
Where did he play again?
Harvard.
Did he? Wow.
Was on the
know that.
undefeated Harvard team in 1968.
So
Which,
he does not look like he was ever been a football player. But you know what? Neither was Jerry Jones, and he was starting guard on a national champion.
Not
back in the '60s, they were a little bit different.
Not all of us age as gracefully as
Us.
us.
Exactly. Did not know he played.
Number 4, we know this guy
Oh dear, we could have had his mugshot too.
who is no doubt
Maybe this is it. Right before they cuffed him, that was the reaction. he was having.
remake of North Dallas 40 or something. Bill Cosby. I knew he ran track at Temple, but he was also
I knew he was Temple. I didn't know he played football. Wow.
a fullback for the Owls in the early 60s. Fat Albert's my favorite. I love me some Fat Albert when I was growing up.
I was absolute Saturday morning. That was a go-to. Fat Albert.
Last one.
No,
Guy you recognize.
don't do it. I can already tell in your voice. Well, we're about to have another dose. Are you kidding me?
Richard Milhouse Nixon.
Is this is your segment sponsored by Nixon for re-election?
The Nixon Library.
What the Nixon Library?
Tan, rested, and ready.
Oh no. I know.
3 weeks in a row, you've
No.
made up a segment just so you could weave Richard Nixon around it.
I'm obsessed, obviously.
I don't think there's any doubt. You should go work for the library. Seriously, the Nixon Presidential
I
Library.
should. We can do a whatever you call it, a live
What,
interview.
what was
every
Nixon's
week.
position?
He was a guard.
A guard, of course.
On the right.
I don't know about that. Yeah,
He was-
He was
He was
a right-
he really wasn't on the depth
Security
chart.
guard.
Yeah.
He was 5'11", 175, and even in those days that was not playable. In fact, they call him a third string guard for the Whittier Poets. Now
Is there a more intimidating nickname in all of football than the Poets?
his teammates, one teammate,
Here come the Fighting Poets. Watch out.
this probably sums it up best about his career. One teammate labeled him as cannon fodder.
Okay, worst nickname ever. All right, you got to get a. Do you have a Nixon bobblehead?
No.
Oh, come
Oh,
on.
there's got to be one.
That's gotta be your-
There's one out there.
That's got to be
There's
your
one out there.
Christmas present.
Do we have time for I'm gonna make it very, very quick.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
we're running. Burt Reynolds.
Yes.
I've
Of
got
course,
I've got a
Florida
great
State.
I've got a great personal Burt Reynolds story. I worked for a guy at one time at LSU, a dear friend, almost my surrogate dad, named Paul Manasseh, who was a great practical joker, had a fabulous sense of humor, and he was the LSU sports information director, and was at an event with where Keith Jackson was there, the great Keith Jackson, and one of the people who was there at the event was Burt Reynolds. And Burt Reynolds, of course, was fond of his brief career at Florida State as a backup halfback.
Yep.
And of course, Paul knew this. Now, this would have been in the 70s when Burt Reynolds already had a terrific Hollywood career, and Keith Jackson says to my friend Paul, he says, you know Burt Reynolds, huh? And he goes, yes. He says, Burt Reynolds. He says, Florida State halfback, 1956. He says, got to play in ran for 140 yards against so and so, and Bert's face lights up, and he's like, oh, here's somebody who knew about his football career, and Paul's rattling off all these things about Reynolds is playing college football, and Bert's smiling, and he says, "What the hell you been doing?"
And then Bert's face just melted into what the. Oh, that's a good one. All right, there's some celebrity football players you didn't know played football as celebrities. PressBox DFW Live. Next up, right kind of guys, my ass. Welcome to Wits End, sponsored again by the good folks at Lifetime Fitness in general, and in particular, Lindsay Siegel. She's the best trainer in the world, in my humble opinion. Not too late to get in shape for summer. Hit up Lindsay for a free, I said free, F-R-E-E training session at Lifetime Fitness, the location at Mockingbird and 75 there in Dallas. Don't have to be a member. Don't have to have any money. Just hit her up. There's her phone number. You can email her. You can call her. Say, hey, PressBox DFW said you would give me a free workout. She will absolutely do it. Go see Lindsay. She is the best trainer for the best sweat of your life. It is Lindsay at Lifetime. All right, so you guys have heard Jason Garrett, head coach of the Cowboys, obviously. He always crows. We're trying to get the right kind of guys. He's the right kind of guy. We want to get the right kind of guy. How many times do we have to hear that in conjunction with ... another Cowboy has been suspended? It's just such a crock of crap. And I like Jason Garrett, but he needs to stop saying that because they don't try to get the right kind of guy. They don't. If they do, they're horrible at it. Because Robert Quinn is the latest Cowboy to be suspended last week, 2 games by the NFL for performance-enhancing drugs. Now, his agent says it was anti-seizure medicine, but the NFL had a hearing and an arbitrator disagreed, and off we go. And all of a sudden, make it 6, that's right, 6 consecutive years that the Dallas Cowboys have started a season with at least one defensive player suspended by the NFL. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. This is not just coincidence, is it? I mean, they're getting the wrong kind of guys, not the right kind of guys.
Well, they seem to be leading the league in those kind of suspensions.
There's no doubt. 17 players have been suspended since 2014.
Well, you want them to play football, or you want them to sing in the choir?
I want them to play football. How about that?
I think whatever they can save on that Dak contract, you got to find somebody who can.
John is so tore up about Dak.
I am. They ought to find somebody who can fool that drug test. Is what they need to do.
You're exactly right about that. Here is the nut jobs defenders that Jerry Jones has and Jason Garrett have tried to find the right kind of guys. Alonzo Spellman, Demetrius Underwood, Josh Brent, Greg Hardy, David Irving, Randy Gregory, and now Robert Quinn, all suspended for, bipolar or drugs or performance-enhancing drugs or arrests or domestic violence or the fatal car crashes. It's always something, and it just took me back to the day of when I covered the Cowboys and a guy fell in their lap by the name of Chad Hennings.
Yes.
Now, Chad Hennings was not the best NFL player to ever put a star on his helmet. But I wrote about him last week, and I actually bumped into him up here where we do the podcast at On Air Media. And it just reminded me, that's what the Cowboys need. They need a guy with character and integrity and morals who will be a better than average NFL player, not a star, but who will never get in trouble off the field. Is that so dang hard?
No.
And apparently the answer is yes, because Cowboys can't do it.
Well, I'll tell you what else guys like Hennings give you is leadership. And
Exactly.
That's something that doesn't grow on trees. That is difficult to find, but those are the types of guys you need. Guys that do anything, the little things, the things that don't show up in summaries. Those are guys that the Patriots are full of.
Yeah. And what we think Jason Witten's going to bring back to the team.
The leadership
Yeah.
quality.
If he hadn't lost a step, maybe he has, but he brings back.
Yeah, no
he
doubt.
brings back, I'm in the huddle, I'm in the locker room, and there's going to be none of this nonsense. You're not going to get to see a mugshot with Jason Witten
Exactly.
or Chad Hennings. So there you go. There's the Cowboys need less of their right kind of guy and more of guys like Chad Hennings. Next up in PressBox DFW Live. Oh, look at the time. We got to go. Time to round the bases. Head for home next. We should have a party. Not that we're retiring like your friend, the captain, but Ziggy put this up there for us. Our first episode last week to crack 10,000 views on Facebook Live. There we go.
Hip.
Yeah, on
You kind of see it in the top corner there, 10K views. We're up to 10,007. So our little venture is growing, guys. I mean,
fastest growing website, podcast.
fastest growing
of its-
podcast in this studio.
that's-
From
of its
noon to
kind.
1 on Tuesdays.
That's right. It's a lot of fun to do.
If you're a fan of the show or the website, spread the news. Thank you for being a fan. If you're an advertiser, hit us up. We're growing. We do have advertisers coming in. So this
Send
little
me an
venture's
email.
growing. Yep.
Send me an email at gleberton@pressboxdfw.com, and we will send our army of ad reps.
Absolutely.
Out
We do
to you
have
right away, our invading
talk
army.
about a transfer portal. We have
That's right.
a revolving door
That's
of
right.
salespeople. So you can sell, or if you want to be bought,
And-
hit us up. Yeah. And shout out to Woody's Live there in Fort Worth. They have
Thanks,
us on.
guys.
It's probably just Woody's, but they have us. They're live streaming today. What's on the site this week that's worth reading?
It's definitely football season. We
Yes,
have
it
a lot of good football stuff up there, and just go there. And there's plenty to browse, plenty to click on, and you'll see a lot more of it as football season.
We got a Texas story, we got an
transpires.
A&M story, we got a TCU story, we got a Big 12 story, we got a
Few
Cowboy
TCU
story. So
stories.
we're ready. We're gearing up for football season, and we'll have it covered right here on PressBox DFW Live and at the website PressBoxDFW.com. We'll see you next week when we're going to have next week. It's going to be a good episode. We're going to have on Michael Irvin's old right hand man, who ran stuff for him back in the 90s. He's going to spill beans and tell stories next week on the show. So that'll be episode 11 right here, PressBox DFW Live. For Richie Witt, I'm Gil Lebreton, and he's John Henry.
Or are you John?
I'm John Henry, and you're out. Thanks for seeing you in the PressBox DFW.